this is Dr. Schrier with Float, Sizzle, and Chill. I'm here with Devon Kerr, and this is our second episode. Last week was our first one, and each week I'm going to be interviewing guests about their health routines, about what they do to stay healthy, what you can do at home as the audience to improve your health and get better every week. How you doing, Devin?
It's hot.
It's pretty hot in here.
I'm ready, though. I'm ready.
So each week, the interview takes place in a sauna. It's about 170, almost 180 degrees right now. It's going to be 20 minutes in the sauna, 3 minutes in the cold plunge, and there's a little bit of a game, a challenge with each episode. So Devin, if you make it through the 20 minutes in the sauna and the 3 minutes in the cold plunge, then I'm going to donate $250 to your charity of choice today. What's the charity that you want to donate to?
By the way, I gotta get through this.
If
first.
You make it through.
So we're gonna do Discovery Sandaway Center. Everybody probably knows it as the Sandaway House, but the center itself for local animals, both endangered and regular, and taking care of them. They house them. It's an incredible experience if you get an opportunity.
Perfect. I love that place.
Yeah.
And it's local. It's awesome.
People think it's for the kids. They're wrong.
Yeah. That's awesome. Can't wait to go again. And so each week we're going to do a charity like that for our guests. And we also have a mission here. So I started a new company recently called Pay It Back Pizza with Dr. Schrier. Our mission is to help homeless people that want to get back into the workforce, want to get out of homelessness. So we're going to give them jobs, kind of like a food truck, but we're going to do a pizza pop-up where we get a tent, portable pizza ovens, and we're going to teach them and train them how to run the business and how to make pizza. And then when it's successful and they are up to speed and trained, then we're going to give them the business and it's going to be theirs. So we're excited to help lots of people. We already have our first candidate lined up, and I'm looking forward to share more about that in the next couple of weeks. So if you want more information, email me at info@drelan.com, drelan.com. But we're trying to help with the homelessness problem, give them opportunities where they may not have any currently, and just try to make the world a better place. So let's get started, Devin. So for those of you who may not know, we have a soccer superstar here, Devon Kerr. At one point, he was one of the top 100 soccer players in the U.S. and then went professional in Germany. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that and what routines and habits did you use to get professional and be in the top 100 other than natural talent?
Yeah, so my journey was a little bit different. First off, especially in the world that we live in, everybody thinks that you have to make it and you have to be the best, and if you're the number one the entire time, that's the way it has to be, and if not, you're a failure. People need to recognize that not everybody's journey is going to be that way in any walk of life, right?
Right.
So certainly at the youth age, that argument in terms of being one of the top 100 was right there, in national team camps, ID centers, journeys across the pond into Europe and South and Central America. My youth team always doing quite well, high school as well. Went to college, and that's when I realized that route just wasn't for me. So started to venture into a couple of different areas, always stayed involved in semi-professional soccer,
right,
but had to figure out that I needed to make some mistakes in order to get back on the right path. And those mistakes weren't bad ones, but they were certainly a big mental growth pattern. When I got outside of that is probably when I started to work harder, because the everyday regimen was easy when it was in front of me and I had the coaches, and it was, this is what you need to do, you need to maintain this, and this is how you'll get there. When those guiding lights and forces aren't there on a regular basis, we're having a very different argument, right? So
like your conscience, right?
Exactly. So you got to dig down deep within and figure out, what do you want to get out of this? And the phrase that I'm going to use is a cliche, and people might think it's ridiculous, but they call them cliches for a reason. They mean something, right? They come from an area of value usually. And so you're going to get out what you put in. And had a conversation with a couple of guys that were playing on the national team. Eddie Johnson was one of them. And they kind of just looked at me and said, what are you doing, man? And again, it's not a disrespectful comment to anything else that was going on in life or the people that I was involved in, but they just recognized that the direction that I wanted to go was a little bit different. And that helped feed me to get back into the athletic world.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the routine was a fun one because at that point in time I had made my way into the restaurant industry, and so the hours aren't very kind to the body, we'll say.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You show up at 4. The bar I worked at in downtown Delray Beach, I'd get out at anywhere from 3:30 to 4:30 a.m.
Which was which bar?
Well, I started in the restaurant industry at 32 East as a busboy.
Oh yeah.
When I went into high school, you and I both went to Spanish River. I worked they opened a market out west, and it was called 32 Eats, E-A-T-S.
Oh, okay.
Play on words, play on names. It was actually right across from where Murakami is.
Oh, I love that part.
And it was a combination of 32 Eats on one side, growing market. The other side was a restaurant. Combined the two together, it was great. So anyway, moving into the downtown area, I started at Soul Kitchen, moved into Trist, busboy, food runner, barback, bartender, food times, all great. But the routine suffered because you'd work till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the next thing you know, you're waking up at 6 a.m. to go train.
And this was all before you went professional?
Correct.
Oh wow! So I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'd made the determining factor that, listen, this is what was going to happen. I was going to achieve this no matter what. You know, I was the kid in middle school who everybody looked at and said, "Why are you wearing a soccer jersey to career day?" But that's where my ambition lied. You know, I wanted to be a professional soccer player, and though my path veered off the beaten for a little while, I got back onto it, and up at 6:30 would do my gym reps at the local LA Fitness back then. I lived in South Boca, so I was down in Deerfield, come back, take a nap, get up, go train at the field with my trainer, come back. In the evening, I training with the men's team. Those were all my days off. Right. On the days that I was working, same regimen, except no nighttime training. So 100 miles an hour, 24/7. It was intense.
How long did you do that for before you actually ended up like making it pro?
Yeah, so I got back into it late 2006, had my first trial with a professional organization 3/4 of the way through the MLS and USL season in 2007. And I started landing my first offers in January of 2008. I declined some of them for personal reasons, and we can get into that if you want, but ended up making my way officially to Germany in March of 2008.
That's amazing.
Crazy.
I love that story.
Yeah.
And it's actually, different than what I imagined in my head, because I did, research before meeting you here for the interview. I mean, we met once before. But in my head, I saw that you went to high school, you were a soccer star, you went to college, you were a soccer star, and then they just picked you to go to Germany and play professionally. Yeah. So it's interesting sometimes what people assume, and the journey was totally different for you. And I think that actually is a great lesson, because sometimes people see successful people and they think, oh wow, they haven't made.
It's been that way the entire time.
Yeah, he just started, he went through and he became professional. Yeah. Or he just started that business and he became professional automatically. But you can see that, there was times where you had to struggle and you had to push through, and then you ended up making it. So that's awesome. What did you do professionally when you were playing for Germany to recover from workouts and practices and everything, physically and mentally?
Certainly depended on the day and what time of year. Preseason and training camp, Trainingslager, as they call it in Germany, was way more intense, and the body suffered a lot more, as it did in preseason for academy and college. But professional level is different. Throughout the season, it changes. So if you started early on in the year, when you reach preseason at the professional level, it is more of a battle of a mind, to be honest, because the physical side is certainly demanding and it's very difficult. But if you can win this game, and again, in any walk of life, you can almost win any game. And so just finding a way to push yourself that extra mile. I read an interesting excerpt yesterday, and in the interview, the gentleman talked about being a recovering addict. Yeah. And his father was as well. And it's a viral clip. I'm sure everybody's probably seen it, but if you haven't heard it, he talks about the young man confiding in his father that he wanted to step away from sobriety, that he was going to relapse and was going to go back and start drinking again. Yeah. Personally, he was going through a lot of struggles and it was difficult. And his father said, "I support you and I understand it. Yeah. But just don't quit today. Give it one more day." And that's kind of where my mentality lied back then. Certainly the stories are different, but a great analogy, right? Where as physically painful as it was, just don't stop today. Push yourself one more mile, right? One more training session. And also, training camp, although I had been given the verbal opportunity to come to camp, I hadn't officially signed on a contract. So every single day, to prove my net worth more, that dollar value goes up. So you go in, cold plunges, Oddly enough, how ironic,
Awesome.
right? We're right back to square one.
I think it's all connected.
Yeah, you would finish a morning training session. There's a cool down, there's stretching into the cold plunge pool, 5-10 minutes, you're out.
Yeah.
You nap, you ate. Certainly, nutrition was a massive part of it. Hydration, another one.
Yep.
Afternoon, same thing. Sometimes we were doing 3-a-days. What really made it difficult was when you weren't actually playing in the preseason games.
Yeah.
They had you on the other fields running and training, and those are the worst.
So you were never not training.
Exactly. So, and then mid-season, again, depending on what the influx of games looks like, you and I could play on a Saturday and then the following Saturday. If you have 6 days to recover, that's gold. You get Sunday off. Monday's a regen session. That means regeneration. They bring your body in, get it moving again, sauna, cold plunge, stretching, reactivation, just to get the muscles and lactic acid going. Then you do a heavy session early on. It's tactical. When it gets into 2-3 days, that's where the mental side comes back into it, and you're just like, hey, like I've got to find a way to make sure my body and my mind are sound. Tactically, they're going to give us a couple things about our next matchup, and we'll be fine.
So I love everything you were saying, but what did you do for the mental side to actually prepare or get through it? Like, was there any like affirmations or visualization, or what did you do?
Mentally, it was a lot harder for me, and the reason I say that, with all due respect to everybody else, it wasn't because the individual battle. Certainly it was difficult, but the options that are available to people in this day and age are very, very different. So to readily walk out your door and get into a cold plunge pool, I had to go to my facility, which was an hour away. I lived outside of downtown Hamburg. So literally planes, trains, and automobiles just to get there. So that wasn't always an option.
Yeah.
The mental side, I didn't have YouTube. It just wasn't a thing. If I wanted internet, again, I had to go to the Cine Center an hour away and get on the cafe. So to me, working out was my savior.
Yeah.
And I found solace in finding a way to make sure that whatever I was going to do later that day was in the back of my mind. Because I was on different hours, my family, mother, everybody was back home. They were 6 hours ahead of me, depending on the time of year. I'd be coming home for training at 8 o'clock at night. Well, at 8 o'clock at night, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Hit the internet cafe, wash myself of my sins, vent, and that literally was like the best thing for me. Yeah. I was a foreigner. I didn't have someone to regularly talk to, so that's what kept me in a stable condition. That's
amazing. I love that. So it was talking to family and kind of, talking about things, letting it go, and then also the cold plunges and the sauna and everything like that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You learn a little bit of German while you were there?
I can sprechen, nein, which is I speak not
no,
but I can understand the important things like Dime und Bier bitte. I want a beer, please.
Pass the ball.
Hast du gut geschlafen? Did you sleep well?
Nice. So fast forward some years, I know you did some things in between, but now you're actually back in the broadcast world. So you're in the sports world again. You work for Apple TV with MLS. You work for ESPN as a commentator, broadcaster.
Yep.
What is that like to be on the other side? Is it fun? Do you miss the playing, or is it like your dream job?
Well, my dream job would still be to be playing,
right.
But injuries prohibited me from doing that. So it's the second closest thing that I've found to the competition of playing and the relatability factor. It's such an individualized sport, which soccer is, but you will not succeed if not for everybody else around you. You need a good goalkeeper, you need communication, a striker. The broadcast industry is very similar. You have to have a good producer, you have to have a good director. If you guys aren't constantly talking about what you want going into the show, as well as what's happening during the show, the public are going to know. Because you can have a firestorm behind the scenes and this isn't working and that's not working. But if people start to see it on air, that's where the real problem comes in. So, it's incredible. Social media is certainly an interesting place. But it's fun. I want to make sure that, I just had my third child. You and I talked about that. I want to make sure that as they continue to grow, I continue to grow. That I'm a better person. And that when they start to understand what daddy does for a living, they can either aspire to be that, or I've at least set a goal where they can go, hey, like, look at what he achieved, and then got knocked off the top, and then is trying to re-achieve again, because although I'm certainly in a good spot, I'm not where I want to be yet.
I love that. So that's really cool that you're in the world still. Now, we know that, at a certain age, nobody's playing professional anyway, so eventually this would have been the best path for you, right? So there's no firestorms in our show though, right? Like we talked a little bit before.
Just constant heat.
So, but you're making me look bad because I'm like, I feel like I have to like jump out of here and you're like barely sweating.
You're good. Well, do we go up on the beaten glass?
What's that?
You outside the glass and me in?
No, because
Okay.
we got to see both of them.
Making
So I just got to push through it. This is a mental thing. We talked about flotation therapy when we met.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that? What got you into it, and what are the biggest benefits that you noticed?
My father actually got me into it.
Really?
Yeah, before he passed in 2018, my dad was always very mind, body, soul.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Way of the Peaceful Warrior was a book that he lived by and breathed by, and he was all about the Zen methodology of if this is okay, everything else is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that immensely growing up. I still struggle with it.
I think we all do a little bit.
People wear their heart on
right?
their sleeve, and their emotions are there, and it can affect your overall daily judgment and your overall health, for sure. Your mental well-being will matriculate to everything else, a waterfall effect.
Right.
So he's the one who actually recommended it to me, and I just jumped online. I probably Googled and read about it for the better portion of 6 months, and that led us to a mutual friend down in Deerfield Beach at Floatate, and the rest is history. You know, once a month, it's certainly different from COVID, but once a month, it's great, and it just seems to totally reset myself and get into that Zen-like state.
I love it. I love floating too, and I can't wait to talk about more with you about that. Funny story. So I got into floating back in 2013. There was a place in Delray called Do 20 that had one, and I became friends with the owners. So I did it a bunch and ended up getting a float tank at home. It was
Smart,
like
man.
it was like from a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It was amazing though. It really changed my life. But when I had kids and got married and had all these responsibilities, it kind of fell through the wayside. I sold it, and I wasn't floating regularly, and I started noticing I was getting stressed and anxious more often. And that's kind of what led me to create this podcast, is I wanted to share the benefits of floating, cold plunging, sauna, and all the other knowledge that I've gained over the years, because most people don't know.
Yeah.
Or like if you told somebody to try flotation, what do they say?
They'd look at me like I was speaking Greek or Russian to them. They'd have no clue what was going on.
And then once they see what it looks like, what do they say?
That was the most incredible experience of my life, and I can't wait to go back.
So that's what they say after, but when they see what the
when they
pod
see
looks
it?
like.
Oh yeah, you're even crazier. What is it, Mork and Mindy?
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm off into outer space. It's this capsule,
Yeah.
and you're going, you want me to get into that?
Right.
Yeah.
So people kind of freak out about, it looks like it'll be claustrophobic. It looks like it'll be scary, like alone with your own thoughts. But you got to think about, you're with your thoughts every second of the day, whether you're alone in a float tank or in real life. If you're ignoring them, you don't address problems in your life. And so what I found is it helps address, problems going on. And then once the problems are gone, helps with creativity. Have you noticed any of that?
Yeah, so I was just you answered it. I was going to ask, do you find that on the backside of things, you come out, certainly mental clarity, have ideas, but do you actually execute on them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the past, I would get like a short spurt of inspiration, and I would just try to get as much done as I could quickly, and then it would die out.
Yeah.
But recently, I went through this kind of health crisis, like mental health crisis, which I talked about on the first episode, and it really took floating, regularly, the sauna, and the cold plunge to snap me out of it, because I was like in a really deep, dark place.
Yeah.
And those three therapies, along with just talking to people, friends, family, really got me through to the other side. But now that all that has passed and I feel amazing, now when I go in, I use it for inspiration and creativity, and that's how I came up with this idea for this podcast. I actually floated for 2 hours after a seminar, like a self-help seminar about business, and I floated for 2 hours afterwards, and that's where all these ideas came from. So the podcast, the pizza company, and pay it back pillow.
I'm curious, do you use your cell phone less? That's been a big thing for me, is getting away from it to maintain that mental clarity.
If I'm focused on it, and if my wife takes the phone and throws it in the corner, yes. But if
Seems to be a resounding theme, right?
If I'm not careful, I jump right back into it.
Yeah.
So I found if I float, eat healthy, exercise, don't look at the phone much, do the float, sauna, and plunge, I'm good. Don't do any. I hardly drink alcohol. I'm trying to just stay away from it completely because it knocks me out of that state.
Yeah.
Like marijuana, medical marijuana. Stop doing that.
To each their own, just not for us.
Yeah,
I get it.
Exactly. Like I think it helps some people. It helped me before, but with this whole change, I just want to stay in this like peak state all the time.
Yeah.
So after creating the podcast, like yesterday, I started a Tony Robbins 5-day seminar.
Nice.
So I'm going back right after this. So it's like all these things are happening because the universe brought them. And actually, you should talk about how I met you, because it's all the universal stuff.
Love that.
Hi, this is Dr. Alon Schrier coming back to you with Float, Sizzle, and Chill. And I have Devon Kerr back. We just finished the sauna, and he's about to jump in the cold plunge and tell me how we met. So, Devin, jump on in.
Willingly.
Willingly. Yeah. A little faster, come on.
Flashbacks.
All right. Not too hard, right? You gotta get your arms in.
Oh, God, love charity.
Get your arms in. Come on.
Whoa!
So, can you tell the audience how we met? Because that was kind of like a universe attraction thing. It was really weird.
What's the phrase that I use? It's the soccer world is everybody knows everybody, even when you don't know anybody. So, walked into Pliable. You were kind enough to share some gratitude for charity and had both my sons with me. Got to chatting, had some mutual friends. The next thing you know, your wife works in the sports industry. I do as well.
Not my wife. That was my assistant that I was interviewing that day.
I thought that was your wife.
No, that's not my wife. But I've known her for years, Adrian.
Do you want to start over?
No, that's fine. I think it's funny. But I was interviewing Adrian for my
She was great. I'd marry her.
She's awesome.
My wife's not going to see this, right?
She's not single though.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to talking, and it turns out that we know a lot of mutual people. You know a lot of mutual people, and same high school, certainly, which was fun. I thought it was kind of funny how after that, it was kid. It was like a 5-minute conversation was 5 years worth of knowledge that combined everything together.
Yeah.
And just from there, it's blossomed. It's been, what, 2 weeks now?
2 weeks.
We've shared multiple emails. I'm still waiting for the text message. Apparently, I'm not cool enough to be in this phone.
I don't have your number yet. I don't have your number.
We'll get there. But
right.
Yeah, had a baby, and now we're here.
That's pretty much what happened. But you don't know the whole story, because I wasn't even supposed to be at Pliables. I was supposed to be at the Foxtail Coffee down the street, and ended up going to Pliables because we were doing this, open tab for the community. And you were at the front of the line when I was paying, and I said, oh, this is on me. And you were like, what? What is this?
Yeah.
And then I said, you look familiar. And I was like, do we know each other? And you're like, no, I don't think so. Who's this weirdo?
Yeah.
And in the past, I would have just let it go. But I pushed it, and I was like, no, you look like I think we know somebody in common.
Yeah.
And you're like, nope, I don't think so. And I was like, do you mind if I look you up on Facebook? Looked you up on Facebook, and we had 40 mutual people in common.
Crazy.
So I just started listing them out one after the other, and you're like, yep. And you're like, oh, Nick, he owned the running store. And I was like, yeah, I used to go running there, and I'm friends with him. And so we had that connection. And then you started talking to Adrian, and she's in the sports world, and you guys knew a million people in common. And then I asked you to be on the podcast. So it was
fate.
Yeah,
fate.
It was fate. I wasn't even supposed to be there. And that was the first time I had ever done this pay it back thing. So it was pretty cool. Another question is, if you could see anybody on Float, Sizzle, and Chill in the future, who would you want to see, and how are we going to make that happen?
Well, apparently this name has already come up today, and I'm glad that you know of this person, because he actually went to the same school we did. He went to Spanish River High School. Coming in talking, I said that I don't really keep in touch with a ton of people from high school. Mm-hmm. We randomly run in, but regular communication isn't a thing. To me, it has to be Justin Himmelbaum.
All right.
That person he's fantastic. He's kind of a jack of all trades, a positive spirited person, always willing to explore the depths of humanity to try and find the greater good.
Yeah.
Also, he's in these ups and downs in a good way of health, and I'm sure that this would knock his butt right into outer space.
He's gonna love it.
Yeah.
I love
or
Justin.
Hate me for it. So
no, he's gonna love it. I'll tell you why. A couple of things. He just got a cold plunge at his house, so he's doing that regularly and then inviting people over. But the second thing is, I know him from middle school.
Oh wow. Where'd you go to middle school?
Omni. So we
look at this. The Fighting Jaguars back once again.
We played in the same neighborhood growing up with our friend Robert, and kind of fell out of touch. And then when I moved back to Delray, I'd always see him at what was the restaurant that he worked at?
He was at Park Tavern. Yeah.
And whenever he was at Park Tavern, I went with my wife. I'd be like, Justin's so awesome. He has this great personality. He's doing great at the restaurant, but he would do amazing in something with sales or service.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a couple of years, he got into real estate, and now he's killing it. He has a podcast too, and I'm definitely gonna ask him to be on.
Love that.
Let me see if there's any more questions. What are the top 3 things that people can do at home to improve their health?
Great question, and something that needs to be visited more regularly by people.
You should get your arms and hands.
Number one, I'm doing just fine. Thank you so much. I gotta stay afloat to be able to float.
I put my head under.
So, to me, the most important thing is probably sleep. We don't get enough of it. I am very much a believer of that 7 to 8 hour window. I travel all the time, and I stay as routine as possible. So I wake up every single time the same day. I go to bed every single time. Sleep is everything.
Yeah.
The second thing is, excuse me, we talked about this in there about what it's like kind of being in the public eye, and the networks and ESPN and stuff. It's awesome. It's fun. But within that, your brain is constantly going, stepping away, getting away from TV and social media. For me to kind of reset myself, I try and find a 15 or 30 minute window every single day, no matter how busy it is, and I just sit there and I unplug. Sometimes awesome. I stare at the ceiling, sometimes I try and close my eyes, other times I go for a walk, being with my dogs, my kids, where it's nothingness.
That's awesome.
The third thing is, I'm going to use a word that people are going to think they need to use at a certain point in time, but it should be a regular conversation. It's the word diet. People think going on a diet is to assist yourself for that moment. No. A diet should be a way of life. And a diet isn't just, I'm cutting calories here or there. It's, I'll say, well, this is part of my diet. Well, why are you losing weight, Devin? I'm not trying to lose weight. This is how I live. I wake up, I sleep at these times. Like, sleep is a part of my diet. Water intake, in Florida especially, is a part of my diet. Regulating if people use caffeine, making sure that you're not overindulging in those areas. What type of food you put in. It's such a high fast-paced network that we're going a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
Eating well, making sure you're getting good sleep and getting away from all the white noise. Look, we're in August, the second week of August. I've been on 80 flights this year so far. This is, in order to maintain a well-being and a good state of mind, it's flying, it's sleeping, all that stuff. Like, you have to find a routine, and all of that stuff encompasses it all.
I love everything you said. That's awesome. You made it past the 3 minutes. You actually made it 6 minutes.
Woo!
So I'm going to donate the $250 to the Sandaway House.
Appreciate you.
And if you want to hop out, I'll hop in, and you can ask me something if you want. Ow. That's a long stretch.
That'll leave a mark.
7 minutes. Woo. I'm not going to do 7 minutes, but I'll put my head in.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll do 3. All right. Whew. So this was fun today. Just following up with what you said, I think sleep is super important. When I went through that kind of health crisis last year, I think a big part was because I was not resting, burning the candle at both ends. I think at one point I was only getting 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night for about a month and a half. And that was you don't even feel human anymore at that point. If anybody has insomnia, that's what it feels like. If you've never experienced that before, it's really bad. So sleep is super important. You gotta rest. And
I'm curious, with this amazing venture that you're exploring, right, and you want to give back to the community, why did you decide to go after pizza? There are so many different culinary aspects you could have gone after to give people an opportunity, right?
Yeah. So during COVID, I actually got this pizza oven called Uni.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen one of those?
Oh yeah.
So they came out during COVID, and I was scrolling through Facebook, and I was like, I'm at home all the time. I'm gonna learn how to make pizza. So I got this pizza oven, and it's really cool. It's portable. It weighs 20 pounds, heats up to 1,000 degrees, and I just started getting obsessed with it. I think I was making pizza 2 to 3 times a week. Gained some weight.
Watch the diet.
Yeah, I totally gained some weight, but I was making pizza a lot. I learned how to make my own dough, sauce. I was, even cheese. And so I got really into it, and I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool to maybe do a pizza pop-up in the neighborhood and make pizzas and then sell them, and whatever we make we'll just give to charity because it's COVID, we'll do something. Unfortunately, I never did that. I was too nervous or shy, what people would think. But I always had that idea back in my head, it would be cool to create a pizza pop-up or something like that. I was I'm a doctor, it might look weird if I'm at a brewery, like selling pizza. Like people might think that my practice isn't doing good.
That's the quote of the show, by the way. That's the quote of the show.
Which it's doing good, but people might think it was weird.
Yeah.
So I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind until like 3 weeks ago. I go to this seminar, I float for like 2 hours, and then all these ideas that I've had like the past few years start coming back to me. So this pizza thing there's so many reasons. A food truck costs like $40,000 to $80,000 to make.
Yeah.
But this way, and then to maintain. This way, there's people in the Uni like Facebook group. They've started their companies. I've watched it actually be successful. You get a pop-up tent, $100. A logo, $50. The Uni pizza oven I already have, but you can get them for like $200 or $300.
Yeah.
Pizza ingredients cost like $3 to make a pizza. So all in for this pizza business is like $1,000. So like
Smart.
what
Very
business
smart.
what business can you create for $1,000?
Yeah, nearly impossible. Outside of the greatest lemonade stand ever.
Exactly. And it could be free because, if Uni or another pizza oven company wants to sponsor it,
Yeah,
give us
great
some,
cause.
For our cause, tent, logo, pizza ovens, it's $1,000. So, it's good promotion for them, good for the community. And then it's all these things kind of aligns. My cousin, Ariana, Ciancio works for the Delray Police Department. She's a mental health counselor, and she's kind of like the first position of her kind. She's the liaison between the police department and the homeless community.
Gotcha.
So she's like the only one in Florida, I think, or possibly the country that does this. And I told some people about my idea, and people thought I was like crazy. But I asked her, after I told a bunch of people, and she was like, that could work. She said, not every homeless person wants to work, and not every person could work. But she said about 10%, about 10 out of 100, want to get back to work and could work. And we already have our first candidate.
Awesome.
So I haven't talked to them yet,
Yeah.
but she's going to introduce me, and she's going to come on the show, and hopefully he'll come on the show too.
Love that.
But he used to be a chef at City Oyster.
Oh my goodness.
Rents went up, couldn't afford it, living it out of his car, can't work. And that's the story. But she said he could work, chef background. The business within the first month will make enough to supply, home, a place to live. And then the goal is that eventually, when it's successful and he knows how to run it on his own, we'll give business skills, things like that. Then we'll give him like the franchise to run himself, and then he keeps it, and then we do it again and again.
Interestingly enough, and I'm sure you're loving it in there.
How long has it been?
But there's
this is the longest I've ever done. I've
there's
only
a-
done 3 minutes.
There's a
before.
local businessman who was actually in
How
a
long
very
is it
similar
safe to do this?
situation. You can go for 10, 15 minutes.
You sure?
He was a chef. He worked at Tremonti in Delray Beach, went through COVID, and though he didn't reach the point where his family hit the homeless area, they were in a spot where they had no money, they didn't have the ability to work. He actually took a loan out and started a pizza company, which has now blossomed into a food truck. And so, think about it.
Which one is that?
It's Rosanna's.
I love that place.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Opportunities.
Yep,
they've set.
it's Rosanna's.
That's my favorite pizza.
And most people don't know this part, but not only did he start it once, during one of his trips, he was in Miami, and his pizza was hit by a drunk driver, and the drunk driver destroyed it. And the local community rallied around him. They built him a new one. Now he's at Inter Miami games. He got to experience Messi and the Anvil and all of that, and
he's killing it.
kind of coming from the bottom and working his way back up. Same type of idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw his. I've had his is like the best pizza, and I saw the story about when the first one got destroyed.
Yep.
And people rallied and.
Winwood.
Yeah.
Is where it was.
Oof. All right. I think I'm done.
6.5 minutes.
Woo. So, I think there's some great lessons there for the audience, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So, tune in next week, and we'll see you then. Thanks for being here, Devin.
Appreciate you.
It's awesome.